So, more fun with William Glasser's choice theory. So, William Glasser, he says if you want to change attitudes, start with a change in behavior. Change the behavior, the attitudes follow along. This is at the heart of all good education, where the teacher asks students to think and engages them in encouraging dialogues, constantly checking for understanding and growth. So William Glasser, choice theory, reality therapy. One good thing that I saw about the reality therapy is that you give them freedom and some power and respect them. And I mean, he's right. He's right. He's basically saying we just need to treat each other like human beings, treat each other like, decent human beings. Fuck the hierarchy. Every single major push in education has made it worse, and right now it's really bad because everything we've done is dehumanizing education. Smackdown is destroying the possibility of the teacher and the student having a warm, friendly, intellectual relationship. Absolutely. The teacher-student relationship is a bad relationship automatically to begin with, and that relationship is spread amongst all 30 of them. Not only do the student and teachers have a bad relationships, but because of that hierarchy, the students themselves can't even have good relationships because they are slaves united in their oppression. Good or bad, everything we do is our best choice at the moment. Everything we do, it's our best. I'm just reading quotes off a brainy quote by William Glasser's. Everybody needs one essential friend. That's absolutely true. That's so good. I would say this isn't a disorder, but I feel like I had felt lonely. And I've been talking to the world, right? Well, y'all don't want to listen to me? Fuck y'all then. I'm going to talk to the world. And this video is actually for me to pick up later on. If I get the feeling like that again, then, I can just sort of work my issues out or work my problems out logically in a methodical method. There's a problem, then I need to work on a solution. And we can only do so much in a day, so work as hard as you can on that solution. And it seems like why is it so hard for other motherfuckers to get me to that spot? And I don't understand why. In fact, when I think about some of my issues or some of my problems, it was Spalding University. I wrote about 100 pages on alternative education. The next step would be to have a big symposium or some sort of seminar or some sort of speech where I talk to the entire, faculty and say, hey, here's alternative educations. It's also, that could be a part of the curriculum or an elective class. I could teach alternative education. I know about a dozen different alternative education styles. Sudbury Model Schools is my favorite. Waldorf is pretty interesting. Reggio Emilia. And let's see, what's the Sudbury model, and then there's Summerhill. Summerhill and Sudbury model very similar, but they're about democracy, empowering the students. Right now, with public education, the teacher has 100% of the power, and the student has none. All the students have 0% of the power. So teachers, give students 0% of the power. Parents give their children 0% of the power, and then they become 18, then they push them out of the house and say, good fucking luck, you piece of shit. And it's like, wait a second, I was never trained to be powerful and to make my own way and to defend myself and to be strong and to be a leader. What the fuck? What the fuck? Now you're pushing me out of the damn nest when we should be flying out of the nest. So no human being will work hard at anything unless they believe that they are working for competence. So find an essential friend. That's sort of what that rant was about. They have this big book called the DSM-IV, that is supposedly written about crazy people. But I think it is a book that is written by crazy people. L. Ron Hubbard also criticizes the DSM-IV. Asperger syndrome is not in the DSM number 4 anymore, so that's a big deal. If the Asperger's isn't a disorder, and I read actually a top 10 list of previous disorders, and they're fascinating, to be honest with you. Homosexuality was considered a disorder, and then there was like 9 other ones that I can't remember. But we are driven by 5 genetic needs: survival, love, and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. So I think that goes to the not the choice theory, but the reality therapy. So when a therapist sits down with their client, you know, we're all surviving, so we all need, you know, warmth, clothing, food, water, use the bathroom, whatever. Love and belonging. You need to feel like you're accepted. Power. You need to be able to be empowered. Freedom and fun. But with the relationship, there's two people there, right? So how can you have power? They can have some. Well, you can, you know, I don't know, pick whatever pen you want. Pick whatever pen you want, and then, you know, write stuff. If you don't want to write, you don't. I don't know. But freedom, that's good. William Glasser recognizes that we all have to have freedom. Freedom isn't just a virtue; it's a requirement for humanity. If you ain't free, you ain't nothing. But then Malcolm X says, if you ain't willing to die for freedom, then put freedom out of your head. So nobody, you know, everybody's got a will to power, and if everybody is trying to put their willpower on you, then what public education doing is just totally fucking everybody up, because they are saying you need to be obedient and submissive and to lie down and just, you know, do as you're told. So do as you're told. And that's not for freedom. That's not good for freedom. It's not good for your own personal power. In fact, that'll make you an obedient sort of bitch-ass slave for the rest of your life. Do you want to be a bitch-ass slave? No, you don't. You want to be strong, powerful. You want to be free so you can be your authentic self and authentically love and be generous and do this and do that. You want to be who you are. But if you're being oppressed, then you can't be who you want to be. And we need to be all that you can be in the army. William Glasser's choice theory is a theory that we all choose how to behave at any time, and that we cannot control anyone's behavior but our own. This is from Wikipedia. Glasser also believed in the vitality of classroom meetings that are held for communication and solving problems. Classroom meetings are one of the best ways, actually, to solve a problem. Instead of just saying, I'm the teacher, I make the rules, you have classroom meetings. One of the first meetings you could have is sort of to establish rules. Look, we all got to get along, so how are we going to do this? Well, when we're, you know, having class or some sort of organized discussion, we need to have one person talking at a time. There, boom, there's a rule. Let's not punch each other. Let's not steal each other's stuff. Boom, boom, there's two more rules. And by the students actually coming up with the rules themselves, and then we all agree with them, they have been invested in the rules of the room. And to be honest with you, I'm really good at rules, just not orders. If someone wants to stand over me and loom over me and boss me around, fuck that. But if they're like, hey, just don't go around punching people, cool. I won't punch the people and just, you know, go off the side and ride and read. I'm not a punching other people type of guy. I do know some people that do like to punch other people, so they might be like, no, I want to punch people. And like, you know, I don't know. They might be overruled, so you have to get somehow you got to get them involved in humanity. You know? Do you like to get beat up? And what if they say yes? Yeah, I like to get punched. That's why I punch others, so that hopefully they punch me and I get. It's like, oh shit. Okay, well you're a little different. You might have to put them in a classroom all by themselves. In the classroom, it will be important for teachers to help students envision a quality existence in school and plan the choices that lead to it. So how do you want a quality existence in your school? For example, Johnny Waits is an 18-year-old high school senior, and he plans on attending college to become a computer programmer. That's what he wants to do with his life, a computer programmer. Well, let's actually have courses and things designed for him to be a computer programmer. William Glasser suggests that Johnny Waits should be learning as much as he can about computers instead of reading fucking Plato. This concept is called quality curriculum, which consists of topics students find useful and enjoyable. That's how we all sort of learn. If you want to learn something, we can educate ourselves. We got the internet. We got YouTube, how to do videos. We got, words you got on, web pages that you could read and figure out how to do things. It's nice to actually have someone show it to you, but YouTube video, someone is showing you how to do it so you can actually see the thing. I think there is a missing person quality to it. If someone was telling me how to change an engine, how to, do something with an engine, to pull out a piston or something, I could look online how to do it, and I would understand the concept and, how the know-how. There was actually a brake lines. I changed the brake lines out of my truck. It was just spraying all over the place because it rusted out, and I saw how to do it online, but when I got to do it, I couldn't actually do it. There's a way that he was to take the vice grips, and kept it in there, and it was like, you know, it was rusted together, but he somehow put the vice grips up, and so it was backed into the some part on the bottom of the truck and then twisted the other thing. But he was able to sort of lodge it in there, and I would have had no idea how to do it. You know, I paid him like a couple $20 or so. And so, you know, that helps to actually have a person there showing it to you. But, you know, for the most part, like, I understood the concept, I understood what I needed to do, what parts I needed to do. So we can educate ourselves. In fact, Isaac Asimov says that all education is self-education anyways. So if I want to become a computer programmer, why are you making me, you know, study all this dumb shit? Plato? Like, fuck Plato anyways. I don't know if you know anything about how the Romans or the Greeks? They were kind of weird motherfuckers, so there's a lot of Platonian ideas that other people speak about. So start with Chomsky. If you want to do philosophy, Chomsky's a better philosopher than motherfucking Plato. And then also there's another one. Someone like challenged Plato. I want to say Jean-Jacques or Hobbes, Levi, I don't know. There's, you know, Plato might have been like the beginning and started shit, but fuck him. He was like, he died, right? 2000. If he's so damn smart, why is he dead? Okay, who gives a shit? I'm just saying, like, if you want to be a computer programmer and someone's kind of forcing you shit, you know, Plato down your throat, and you don't want them. And actually, speaking of, Plato shoved Plato down other people's throats, and you know that's you can't do that. This concept is called quality curriculum, which consists of topics students find useful and enjoyable. That makes sense. I logically understand why I should do this computer programming class since I want to be a computer programmer. I'm going to go to school for this shit. Why not get a basic education for it before I actually go do what I need to go do? Glasser suggests that Johnny should be learning as much as he can about computers instead of reading Plato. This concept is called quality curriculum, which consists of topics students find useful and enjoyable. Under Glasser's strategy, the teacher would hold discussions with students when introducing new topics and ask them to identify what they would like to explore in depth. As part of the process, students need to explain why the material is valuable in their life. Somebody just giving you attention, that's your essential friend. You're talking about your own life, where you want to go with it, and then, you know, it's sort of connecting the dots. I did all those studies with alternative education. Well, what am I going to do with all this? You know, I could publish a book. I could do a lecture series. I can, you know, there's many things that I could have done with my knowledge of alternative education, but they wanted their, you know, claws in me. They just wanted me to submit. And so they didn't actually give a shit about my life and where I go. If you think about sort of your own high school experiences, how many are you friends with the teachers today? The teachers don't give a shit. You go in, you go out. They made you do a bunch of shit, and that's it. You know, that's all she wrote. They got a job. They make a bunch of money, and in fact, when you teach others, you are the one that's getting the education because you retain 95% of what you teach to others. But lectures, if I'm being lectured at, I only retain 5% of it. So the students who are in lecture classes aren't retaining jack shit, 5%. Then you have to go somewhere else and try to study all this shit and then regurgitate whatever fucking ideas that they had told you to do anyways. But I know myself. I know what I want to do. Here's what I would like to study. Here's the curriculum that I would like to choose. In fact, that was all about the Freedom School. I just took all these alternative schools and combined them, all the best qualities of all these alternative schools, and combined them into one. And that's how you do it. You decide so if you still want teachers to be around, I think it's on the teachers to say why they're still useful. And to say, hey, I got this class, I could teach welding, I could teach plumbing, I could teach math and calculus, engineering and whatever. And they was like, well, why should I learn calculus? Well, if you want to be an engineer, why would I want to be an engineer? You can make a bunch of money being an engineer. Okay, all right, I'm listening now. So they've had to, you know, get your curiosity piqued. They got to make the class interesting, and then once they are curious about your subject material, then it's actually easier for them to learn, right? That's the hook for them to learn. But instead, it's like, hey, learn algebra, learn this class and this other class because some fucking old, washed-up, mediocre pieces of shit on the school board told you to do it. And it's like, well, what if they don't know what the fuck they're talking about? Doesn't matter. Shut your mouth, boy. You're forced to go to school, and if you try to play hooky and do some huck fin shit, then you will go to jail for truancy, and your mother will go to jail for truancy. How dare you not force your kid into this educational slavery system? An example of choice theory in education are Sudbury model schools, where students decide for themselves how to spend their days. The Sudbury Model Schools is such a dream school. In fact, they are just completely free. There's Waldorf and Montessori schools, which have they're good when it comes to liberation, and they're more freeing than traditional public schools. But the Sudbury Model Schools is total, complete freedom. You just have to clock in. You just have to go to the school, put in 8 hours or so, per day and 5 days a week, and that's it. Go in, hey, I'm here, and just, kind of stroll around, look at the stars, look at the grass, and eventually, hopefully you'll do something, right? There's all the resources, there's other kids there, and you'll want to do something, but you're allowed to do whatever the fuck you want, play Nintendo game, play video games all day long, play on the computer, write poetry, don't talk to anybody, talk to everybody, whatever you want to do, whatever the fuck you want to do. It's also democratically set up, so there's a student council, and then they, sort of make these rules here and there. So Sudbury Model Schools, the guy who actually runs the thing, he said something genius compared to like Montessori or Waldorf, which gives you a little bit of freedom, but you think it's the real thing. It will trick you into being manipulated for the rest of your life. So Montessori schools, they'll have like 4 or 5 stations, and usually I think it's for like kindergartners, and it makes sense for kindergartners, for like really young students. But they go in and it's like, here's 4 or 5 things, and they get to choose which ones that they want to engage in, and then when they choose those things, then they learn, whatever station is there. But if, like, you get to high school or older years, and that's how you think that, the teachers had set up which stations they wanted you to learn, which classes or whatever, and then it's like, oh, you got the freedom to choose whatever you want to, and it's like, oh, wow, I got all this freedom. Well, it's not really freedom. It's only freedom, in the 5 stations. They put the 5 stations out there. What would you want to learn something that they didn't set up as a station? I wanted to learn computer programming, and there's no station for it. Well, it's all right. Go do that Kentucky history class. But I want to do computer programming. Hey, look, we don't have a station for it, so get the fuck out of here. So the man who runs the Sudbury Model Schools, I saw an interview, and he had said that those schools which give you a little bit of freedom, pretending that it's actually the real thing, complete freedom, tricks you. And it manipulates you into believing that their little bit of freedom is total freedom, and that leads to where you'll be manipulated for the rest of your life. So, the fundamental premises of the school are that all people are curious by nature. Well, actually, let's go back here. In Sudbury Model School, students of all ages determine what they will do, as well as when, how, and where they will do it. This freedom is at the heart of the school, and it belongs to the students as their right not to be violated. The fundamental premises of the school are that all people are curious by nature, that the most efficient, long-lasting, and profound learning takes place when started and pursued by the learner, that all people are creative if they're allowed to develop their unique talents, that age mixing among students promotes growth in all members of the group, and that freedom is essential to the development of personal responsibility. In practice, this means that students initiate all their own activities and create their own environments. The physical plant, the staff, and the equipment are there for the students to use as the need arises. The school provides a setting in which students are independent, are trusted, and are treated as responsible people, and a community in which students are exposed to the complexities of life in the framework of a participatory democracy. Democracy. Schools teaching our kids democracy, how fucking great. Maybe they'll actually go fucking vote. Maybe they'll know a little bit of civics when they get to be adults. Maybe they won't have 30% turnout rates like the bluegrass state. The democracy. Where are we going to learn democracy? If we're not learning democracy, what, at fucking McDonald's? They ain't going to teach you at a corporation. It's clearly a hierarchical. So where are we going to learn democracy? We could be taught at the home, but there's only 3 or 4 or 5 people at the home, so it has to be at the schools. If we're not learning how to interact democratically, then we don't know shit about democracy. And Americans don't know. If you went through public schools, and you didn't have civics or They didn't have a democratic setup. You don't know anything about democracy. Voting isn't just about democracy. It's actually the very least of democracy. There's so much more. You're not even doing the very least. You're not calling your representatives. You're not running for office. You're not looking at the issues, researching, and seeing, what people stand for. So you're not doing any of what you're supposed to be doing. Sudbury schools are based on the premise that students are personally responsible for their acts in opposition to virtually all schools today that deny it. That's amazing. It's in opposition to virtually all fucking schools. The denial is threefold. Schools do not permit students to choose their course of action fully. They do not permit students to embark on the course once chosen, and they do not permit students to suffer the consequences of the course once taken. That's Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You suffer the natural consequences. If you don't close the window, before you go to bed and you wake up with a cold, then you learn, right? The natural consequences got to you. It's sort of a harsher sort of lesson, but that's, you'll close the fucking window next time, the cold you can get sick. So freedom of choice, freedom of action, freedom to bear the results of action. These are the three great freedoms. So freedom of choice, freedom of action, freedom to bear the results of the action, whether they're good or bad. These are the three great freedoms that constitute personal responsibility. Thus, members of these schools learn democracy by experience and enjoy the rights of individuals. Sudbury schools do not perform and do not offer evaluations, assessments, or recommendations, asserting that they do not rate people and that the school is not a judge. Comparing the students to each other or to some standard that has been set is for them a violation of the students' right to privacy and to self-determination. Students decide for themselves how to measure their progress as self-starting learners as a process of self-evaluation, real lifelong learning, and the proper educational evaluation for the 21st century they adduce. So choice theory is Sudbury model. That was pretty much a description of Sudbury model schools. So there's critiques of choice theory. When I combined all those alternative forms of education for the Freedom School, I feel like I only had like 3 required courses for the year, and one of them was democracy, learning Robert's Rules of Order, so that way we have some sort of understanding of, in group meetings, classroom meetings, and town hall meetings, when we all get together and decide where we want the school to go. That we should all know, how to do those processes. We might not even need like a course, just maybe one seminar, one class for everybody, but you need to understand how to interact and talk with everybody, in a sort of organized manner. And I think Robert's Rules of Order is what every governing body in America uses, Robert's Rules of Order. And if you don't even know what that is, that's city councils, legislatures, capitals, D.C., every, body uses Robert's Rules of Order. So that was one of them. I think I had some other ones too, but I just had very few required courses. And then, because I feel like if you don't have a bar or if you don't have some sort of driving force, here's another one, the ACT, or the LSAT. If you want to be a lawyer and you go to the Sudbury Model Schools and you're not used to taking any type of standardized test, you could learn the LSAT. You can do the LSAT. You could do the medical exam, the MCAT, and whatever the tests that are out there, but you could use that test specifically to train for that test. All right, so if I want to be a lawyer, then I need to do lawyer shit, and one of the ways you get into law school is by passing the LSAT. If I just been doing as the fuck as I please, whenever the fuck I want, then I might not be so good at the LSAT. In fact, I've heard people would study 2 years for the LSAT so they could be really good and logical and understand what the requirements were necessary for law school would be. So that was my, so let's read the critiques of choice theory. Maybe they might mention something there. So I had very, very few requirements, but I leaned towards Sudbury Model Schools. It's free reign. Do what you want. You choose your own curriculum, and then the teachers, offer the courses, and hopefully, if you're a teacher there, the students will like the courses that you're offering. In fact, I even had with the classes, if they didn't have courses that they offered, then the student would write the classes that they want. And then there would be advisors or mentors who would get them what they wanted. Hey, I want to be an astronaut, okay? Well, what the fuck? How do you make someone an astronaut, right? Well, there's got to be like some, Kennedy Space Center, or some sort of aeronautical, some astronaut school that they could get to. So you got to research where that astronaut school is. What can they learn in the meantime? How can we prepare them to become an astronaut? Well, your dream, whatever you dream, you can do it. And at the Freedom School, and that's the way that's how we do things anyways. We all choose to do what we want to do, except for when you're in public education, then you're being fucking forced to do this shit. So, critiques of choice theory, Glasser's theories and teachings have not gone without criticism. In a book review, W. Clay Jackson writes, Dr. Glasser postulates that everything contained in the DSM-4TR is a result of an individual's brain creatively expressing its unhappiness. Oh, I'm liking Dr. Glasser more and more. Dr. Glasser demonizes the entire profession as charlatans who have been brainwashed by their predecessors or who simply misrepresent many of these psychiatric illnesses to patients as having a biological basis, despite claiming to have an appendix full of references demonstrating that there is no evidence that medications have a role in curing mental illness. The book simply relies on a core group of anti-establishment authors. However, what is noticeably absent from the book is a set of randomized clinical trials demonstrating the success of his teachings. So, I'm not sure what they're trying to say. It's like some guy had a problem with it or something, despite claiming they have an appendix full of references. If there's no evidence medications that cure, the book simply relies on a core group of anti-establishment authors. So what? There's a lot of fucking people that says it's bullshit. However, what's noticeably absent from the book is a set of randomized clinical trials demonstrating the success of his teachings. So that's interesting. He personally says 90 to 95% of his teachings work, but that's true. I guess if you want to have a true scientific study to see if what William Glasser is doing is proper, then you probably should take, just 5, or I don't know, you probably want a good sub-sample. So take 50 students who came out of public education, and then take 50 students who came out of Sudbury schools and see how they did, see where they're at, and see if what he was talking about is real. See if maybe the Sudbury model people had disorders that weren't being taken care of, and see if the public education was diagnosing things that shouldn't have been diagnosing the students as. So that would be a good scientific experiment to find out how valid, not just William Glasser is, but how valid public schools are. Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose that scientific battle. Others question the assumptions that Glasser makes in devising his theory. W. Thomas Bourbon had 2 criticisms about the assumptions. First, the teacher or school is responsible for creating an environment that meets the needs of the students. However, a student chooses his behavior based on his own needs. A teacher may go to great lengths to promote a positive environment, but the student may not choose appropriate behavior. In Glasser's theory, when a student misbehaves, the teacher is responsible for failing to meet the needs of the student, contradicting choice theory, which posits that a student chooses his own total behavior. Bourbon also argues that a paradox exists between the idea that a student chooses his own behavior but does not use behavior to control his own perceptions. He explains that this using the too hot, too cold, just right exercise. Imagine a room with an air conditioner and thermostat. A student can walk in and change the setting if too hot or too cold until the room feels just right. But what happens when 29 other students have different perceptions of what is just right in the room? Well, that's another thing. Sudbury Model Schools, you ain't piling 30 motherfuckers up in a room. It's impossible, Bourbon argues, to create a classroom that meets the needs of every individual student simultaneously because students have different perceptions of the same physical conditions. I like that example. I want to, elaborate on that. So if you have 30 people in a room, how do you determine what the temperature should be? I think it should be a utilitarian approach, and I think the majority would agree, democratic. So if the majority says that it's too cold or too hot, we keep on, we determine what is just right for the majority of the people. Utilitarian, right? You want to make the most people as happy as you can. So that's some critiques of his choice theory in education. So I didn't realize actually that Glasser was connected to Sudbury schools like that, but it seems like, according to Wikipedia, they're one and the same. So let's finish this off with a few more quotes. Effective teaching may be the hardest job there is. That's my problem with Spalding University, was I was actually going to be a good teacher, an effective teacher, but they didn't want good, effective teachers. They just want Nazis who tell you to shut up, sit down, and do as the fuck as they're told. No human being will work hard at anything unless they believe that they are working for competence. It is almost impossible for anyone, even the most ineffective of us, to continue to choose misery after becoming aware that it's a choice. If you want to be happy, then just be happy. Why would you choose to be miserable?